May I have your attention, please? The Earth is a sphere. That is all. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Blue Marble Science. Today we're going to talk about a really terrible way to try to debunk the globe. Now, everybody relax. This is really going to be talking about Major Brian Shull, retired U.S. Air Force pilot, and about the SR-71 Blackbird. Brian's one of only 93 people to ever fly that airplane. It's always a pretty good idea to have the oven mitts handy and keep the monitors back out of punching range, but basically, let's just listen to a cool story about a really cool airplane and an even cooler pilot. Before we talk about this failed debunk attempt, let me give you a little background on Brian Shull and the SR-71 Blackbird for those of you who aren't familiar. Brian Shull was a U.S. Air Force pilot. He was shot down over Vietnam late in the war, and he suffered some horrific injuries, but he eventually recovered from that. He volunteered to be a pilot for the SR-71 Blackbird and was accepted. Brian is one of only 93 guys to ever pilot this airplane. The SR-71 Blackbird was the replacement for the U-2 spy plane. SR is the designation for strategic reconnaissance. The airplane was the brainchild of Kelly Johnson at the Lockheed Skunk Works. The Blackbird, to this day, remains the highest flying, fastest air-breathing aircraft ever built, and it was built in 1964 with slide rule technology. The Blackbird can fly at altitudes in excess of 90,000 feet, at speeds in excess of 3.5 Mach. It is absolutely incredible. But a channel called Level Earth Observer tries to take a humorous story that Brian Shull tells and use that somehow as proof that the Earth is flat. So let's listen to Level Earth Observer. It won't take long to see where this guy is going.
Today we're going to have a quick listen to Major Brian Shull of the United States Air Force, former SR-71 pilot, retelling a few stories from back in the day, and in doing so Brian is going to absolutely annihilate the globe theory. We're then going to have a look at the globe distance to the horizon calculator, and then we're going to compare the observations that Brian Shull was seeing, measure the distance, compare it to the distance of the horizon calculator, i.e. the globe mathematics. A big fail, I can tell you. And then we're going to use Google Earth to try and recreate Major Brian Shull's observation. Testing Google Earth and testing the globe at the same time.
Testing Google Earth and testing the globe at the same time, huh? I don't think so, Scooter. I don't believe you're going to make it that far.
And it's a big double whammy fail, I can tell you, as the heights we have to go to recreate Brian Shull's observations in his SR-71 is ridiculous. But let's have a quick listen to Brian first.
When Walter and I were doing a training mission around the United States, we just were building up hours and time, and we take off out of Beale, hit a tanker in Idaho, rip on up to Montana, zip across Denver, hang a right turn in Albuquerque, out over Los Angeles, up to Seattle, back into Sacramento, 2 hours, 21 minutes. And you just do that then you do it backwards, and you hit a tanker. It was just to gain crew coordination, build your hours. We're on our last training mission. We're over Tucson. I can see downtown LA from Tucson. We're at 89,000 feet. I can see the whole western United States bathed in a warm October fall glow. I can see the chain of Rocky Mountains from Canada to New Mexico. I could just see the most beautiful picture laid at my feet in this.
Fantastic, Brian. Thank you. And no doubt it was incredibly flat, my dear man, if you were seeing that far.
And maybe Brian was just telling a funny story, not thinking that years later Cletus might show up and poop on the windscreen.
So Brian, at 89,000 feet, was seeing the whole western side of the United States. He was 89,000 feet above Tucson. He could see the whole of the western side of the United States. He could see downtown LA. He could see the Rocky Mountains in Canada coming all the way down to New Mexico.
So which part of that route of flight confused you? The part where he hit the tanker over Idaho? Or when he was over Montana or Denver or Albuquerque or Tucson? You know, I'm pretty sure he and Walter would have seen the entire chain of the Rocky Mountains on that flight.
Incredible! Let's just have a look on a map, just to give you some idea. 2 secs. So here's a map of the western United States. Tucson is right at the bottom there, below Phoenix. And of course our pilot Brian was 89,000 feet above Tucson. And strangely enough, he was seeing the whole of the United States. Not only that, he was seeing the Rockies come down from Canada all the way down to New Mexico. You kind of gave the game away there, Brian, as we're about to see. Okay, over at the distance to the horizon calculator. Observer height 89,000 feet. Calculate the distance. We get a distance to the horizon of 365.9 miles. Already, anyone who looked at that map just now can see there's an obvious problem. Right, let's get some idea of distance here. I'm going to be quite kind to the globe believers. I'm not going to measure all the way to the Rockies inside of Canada. I'm going to measure to the border. Just to be fair here. I don't want to crush your globe too much. So to give us some idea, distance, let's say approximately 1,100 miles to the Rockies on the US-Canadian border, okay? It's actually a lot further. If I was to include the whole Rockies, we'd be looking in the region of 1,500 miles. But we'll give the Globies a sort of fighting chance here. Not that their reality is real whatsoever, it's pantomime, as we've just seen. So we've got that, 1,100 miles. This SR-71 pilot was seen at an absolute minimum from 89,000 feet. But the globe mathematics tell him, and us, that the horizon, i.e. the cut-off point, should have been just over 300, was it 369 miles, was it? Let me just double check. 365.9 miles. So the horizon on the globe model from an observation height of 89,000 feet should be 365 miles away, i.e. the cut-off point. But strangely enough, Brian is seeing another 7, if we want to include the Canadian Rockies, another 1,200 miles. Oh dear. This only happens when when it's a lie. You wouldn't have these problems if the globe was fundamentally true.
I got an idea. Instead of cherry picking words out of a comedy routine Brian Scholl is doing, ask yourself this question. If you leave Atlanta, Georgia, over here, and fly direct to Los Angeles, over here, by the time you're even with, say, Birmingham, which is right about there, the aircraft will be pretty much at cruising altitude, let's say 40,000 feet. Figure out why it is you can't see New Orleans. Why can't you see Houston, Texas over here? You know, hundreds of millions of people, maybe billions of people, have taken that flight, and not one of them has ever reported being able to see the Gulf Coast. Why is that? You don't suppose the curvature of the Earth's getting in the way now, do you?
So let's go on Google Earth now before we finish, and let's see how high we have to get before we can actually see what Brian, the SR-71 pilot, stroke globe knockout artist, could see. Let's have a look. 2 secs.
Well, I got a better idea. Instead of listening to any more of your foolishness, why don't we listen to the LA Speed story by Major Brian Scholl? Believe me, this is worth listening to.
It's called the LA Speed story. And it was just a story about one day it was really cool being SR-71 pilot. Walter and I were doing a training mission around the United States where you just were building up hours and time. And we take off out of Beale, hit a tanker in Idaho, rip on up to Montana, zip across Denver, hang a right turn in Albuquerque, out over Los Angeles, up to Seattle, back into Sacramento, 2 hours, 21 minutes. And you just do that and you do it backwards, and you hit a tanker or two. It was just to gain crew coordination, build your hours. We're on our last training mission. We're over Tucson. I can see downtown LA from Tucson. We're at 89,000 feet. I can see the whole western United States bathed in a warm October fall glow. I can see the chain of Rocky Mountains from Canada to New Mexico. I could just see the most beautiful picture laid at my feet, and the air as smooth as glass, not a gauge moving in the cockpit. It was perfect. Now I'm thinking, we bad. And I feel sorry for Walter because he has to monitor 5 radios in the back seat, so I flipped the switch up just to listen, and LA Center is controlling, they control all, when you fly Southwest Airlines, the guys controlling everybody. But we're above controlled airspace. So they have us on their scope, but they're not talking to us. Now there's controllers all over the country, Jacksonville Center, Chicago Center, Seattle Center, you know. It's the same guy. They all talk the same. And it's really cool the way they talk because they make you feel important as a pilot. They don't just say, yeah, okay, here's your thing. They make you feel really cool. So sure enough, this was pre-GPS days. Some Cessna guy has to know his ground speed. LA Center, Cessna, November Tango Alpha. You got a ground speed readout for us? Now Center would like to say, who cares, get off freight. But no, he'll talk to him like he's John Glenn. Cessna, November Alpha, we show you 90 knots, 90 knots on the ground. And they do that sing-song voice. That's how they talk. And it makes you feel kind of cool. Right after that, a twin Bonanza came up to pimp the guy for speed, I guess, and LA Center, Twin Beach, whatever. You got a ground speed readout for us? And Center likes it. God, it's Friday. Why me? God, please, just get off. But he's going to talk to him like he's Air Force One. Twin Beach, we show you 121, 20 knots on the ground. And right after that, a Navy F-18 out of Lemoore popped up on frequency. And you knew it was a Navy guy because he talked really slick on the radio. Center, Dusty 5-2, speed check. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Dusty 5-2 has a ground speed indicator in that $1 million F-18 cockpit. It's right there in the heads-up display. Why is he calling Center to broadcast his speed? I get it. We are just the meanest, baddest, fastest military jet in the valley today. We're taking our little Hornet jet over Mount Whitney and ripping across Death Valley. We want everyone from Fresno to the coast to know what real speed is. And you can almost hear a little glee in the controller's voice, like, we have put an end to this. Dusty 5-2, we show you 620, 620 knots across the ground. And it was that across the ground. See that little knife, like, I hope nobody else has the nerve to get on frequency now. And there wasn't an airliner from Seattle to San Diego that wanted to be next on Freak. It's sort of an etiquette thing amongst flyers. And a 12-year-old was reaching for the mic button. And I thought, oh, no, wait, Walter's in charge of the radios. I flew single seat all those years, but I'm in the family model now, and I wanted, no, it's the Navy. They must die. They must die now. And I thought, no, but if I do, I'll upset Walter, and I want us to be a good crew. And at that moment, I heard a click of the mic button in the back seat. Ladies and gentlemen, Walter and I became a crew at that moment. In his best innocent voice, LA Center, Aspen 30, have you got a ground speed readout for us? You could almost hear a collective gasp on Freak, like, oh, the poor fools didn't hear the previous transmissions. Oh, they got crushed like a grape. It's just a pilot thing. But Center had to give you that same voice. Aspen 30, we show you 1,992 knots across the ground. When I knew I was going to like Walter a lot is when he came back and said, Center, we're showing a little closer to 2,000. Ladies and gentlemen, we did not hear another transmission on that frequency all the way to the coast. The king of speed lived, the Navy had been flamed, and a crew had been formed. For just a moment, it was absolutely fun being the fastest guys on the block.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Click that little bell if you want notifications of the next video. There's a link to the Patreon. It'll be up in the description. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.